Welcome to Living Beyond the Invisible, a walk with Heather. I'm Heather Perrin, and this is the space where we will pull back the curtain on life with invisible disabilities. Each week, we'll explore the realities of chronic illness, the challenges that often go unseen, and the strength it takes to keep moving forward. Whether you're living with an invisible disability yourself, supporting someone who is, or just wanting to understand more, you're in the right place. Let's take this walk together. Hi, and welcome back to the show. Today we're going to talk about a word that gets thrown around a lot, but often in ways that doesn't capture its full meaning. That word is ableism. You've probably heard it before. Maybe you've even used it. Maybe you've seen it online or in advocacy spaces, or maybe you've heard someone dismiss it as just another buzzword. But the truth is, ableism is very real. It's everywhere. And for people living with invisible disabilities, it shapes our lives in both big and small ways. Those ways often are not noticed by those from the outside. When I say ableism, I'm talking about the discrimination, prejudice, and stereotypes that people with disabilities face, sometimes outright and blatant, sometimes hidden and subtle. And unlike other forms of discrimination that might be a little more obvious, ableism often hides in plain sight. It's a throwaway comment in the way a workplace is structured, in how healthcare is delivered, or even in how friends and family respond to our limitations. For people with visible disabilities, ableism can show up as barriers to access. No ramps, no captions, people staring, people infantilizing them. But for those of us with invisible disabilities, it often comes with an added layer of disbelief. Because if you look fine, people assume you are fine. And when you're not fine, they think you're lazy, dramatic, or seeking attention. That's ableism too. Ableism at its core is the belief that being able-bodied and neurotypical is the default or the normal way to exist, and that anyone who doesn't fit that mold is somehow less capable, less valuable, less trustworthy. Sometimes it's conscious, sometimes it's not, but the impact is the same. It hurts, it isolates, it makes life harder for people already living with challenges that others can't see. Let's start with what ableism can look like in daily life. Imagine you're at work and you're dealing with crushing fatigue from an autoimmune condition. You know you're struggling, and you finally build up the courage to ask your manager for an accommodation. Maybe that's a flexible schedule, or maybe the option to work from home on flare days. And the response you get is, well, everyone's tired. You just have to learn to push through. That's ableism. It's the dismissal of a genuine medical condition and a genuine need because it doesn't fit the able-bodied idea of what work should look like. Or let's say you're dealing with chronic pain and a friend asks you to go out. You explain that you can't this time because your body just won't cooperate. And they roll their eyes and say, "You're always canceling. You just don't want to hang out with me." That's ableism too. The assumption that you're choosing to stay home instead of understanding that your body and your disability makes your choices for you. Now, some people are going to hear this and they're going to say, "Oh, that's just rudeness or misunderstanding, not ableism." But here's the thing. Ableism is misunderstanding. It's rudeness born from ignorance. It's dismissiveness wrapped in stereotypes. It's the systems and attitudes that consistently put disabled people on the outside of normal. When someone assumes you're faking because they can't see your illness, that's ableism. When someone calls you lazy because you can't keep up with their pace, that's ableism. When a doctor refuses to run tests because they assume it's just anxiety, that's ableism in medicine. It's not just about hurt feelings. It's about power and inequality. One of the tricky things about invisible disabilities is that ableism often demands that we prove our disability before we're taken seriously. Think about how many hoops you have to jump through to get accommodations at work or at school. You need documentation, you need doctor's notes, you need multiple forms signed. And sometimes, even after you do all of that, someone will still say, well, you don't look sick, so how do I know you're not just playing the system? Imagine if someone in a wheelchair was told, well, you have to prove to me you really need that chair before we'll let you get a ramp. We would never accept that. But with invisible disabilities, it's normalized. That constant demand for proof is a form of ableism too. Now let's talk about ableist language, because words matter more than people realize. Phrases like, just suck it up, don't be so dramatic, it's all in your head, you're just lazy, or even everyone's tired, are not just dismissive. They reinforce ableist attitudes. They tell us that unless our pain or fatigue looks a certain way, it's not valid. And when people throw around disability-related words as insults, like calling someone lame, crazy, or spaz, they might not realize it, but they're reinforcing the idea that being disabled is bad, shameful, or laughable. That language sinks into culture, and it shapes how people see us, and how we sometimes even see ourselves, if I'm being honest. Here's the thing, though. Ableism doesn't just come from strangers. Actually, it comes from the people closest to us more often than not. A family member who says, you just need to get out more. A partner who gets frustrated when you can't keep up with their lifestyle. A friend who stops inviting you because they don't want to deal with your limitations. These moments sting the most because they come from people who are supposed to support us, and yet they often reflect the same ableist beliefs we see in the wider world. That being disabled is a burden, that it's an excuse, that it's something to be brushed aside, something to be ashamed of. And then there's structural ableism. The way society is literally built in a way that excludes us. Things like workplaces that won't adapt to flexible schedules, schools that make it hard to get learning accommodations, healthcare systems that dismiss symptoms until someone collapses. Even something like public transportation can be ableist when it assumes everyone can stand for long periods or walk long distances. For people with invisible disabilities, these barriers are often invisible too, but they're very real. They're baked into the systems that decide who gets opportunities, who gets care, and who gets believed. Another important piece is how ableism intersects with other identities. For example, women are far more likely to have their symptoms dismissed by doctors as emotional or hormonal. Yep, I repeat that a lot because it's true, and I'm really hoping one of these days it will sink into everybody's heads. Studies have shown that women with chronic pain often wait longer for diagnosis and treatment compared to men. That's ableism layered with sexism. Don't care how you look at it, that's just what it is. People of color with invisible disabilities often face additional barriers as well. being disbelieved not just because of their disability, but because of racial bias in healthcare as well. That's ableism intersecting with racism. So when you talk about what ableism looks like, we can't ignore that it doesn't affect everyone equally. One of the most damaging effects of ableism is the internalized kind. Over time, when you're constantly told you're lazy, unreliable, dramatic, or less than, you start to believe it. I know I did, and I have. You start pushing yourself past your limits to prove people wrong. I am still guilty of this. You deny yourself rest because you don't want to seem weak. You berate yourself for not keeping up, even when your body is begging for a break. That's ableism living inside us. And it can be just as harmful as the external comments. It makes us question our own worth, our own truth, and breaking free from that internalized ableism takes a lot of unlearning and self-compassion. I still have not mastered that, just in case you're wondering. So what does ableism really look like? It looks like being told to just try harder. It looks like doctors brushing off symptoms. It looks like bosses who won't bend the rules for invisible conditions. It looks like losing friends because they think you cancel too much. It looks like people using disability as a punchline. It looks like strangers giving you dirty looks for using the accessible bathroom stall or parking in an accessible space when you look fine. It looks like 1,000 little cuts over and over and over until you're left questioning your own sanity. But here's the good news. Ableism can also be challenged. The more we talk about it, the more visible it becomes. When we call it out, when we educate others, when we set boundaries, when we start to chip away at it, sometimes that looks like having a conversation with a loved one about why their comment was harmful. Sometimes it looks like advocating for better accommodations at work or in school. Sometimes it's as simple as refusing to apologize for existing the way we are. Because here's the truth, disability is not less, it's not wrong, it's not shameful. It's part of human diversity. And until society sees it that way, ableism is just going to keep showing up over and over again. But the more of us who share our experiences, the harder it becomes to ignore. If you're listening to this and realizing you've experienced ableism in your own life, I want you to hear me clearly. It's not your fault. You're not lazy. You're not making it up. You're not less than. The problem, my friend, is not you. It's the ableist attitudes and systems that weren't built with you in mind. And while we may not be able to change every person's mind or fix every broken system overnight, we can start by naming it, by refusing to accept it as normal, by standing in our truth and reminding ourselves and others that we are worthy of respect and dignity and care. So the next time someone tells you, you don't look sick, you'll know that's ableism. The next time someone dismisses your fatigue, your pain, your need for rest, you'll know that's ableism. The next time you find yourself doubting your own worth because you can't keep up with society's pace, you'll know that's internalized ableism. And it does not define you. Let me repeat that. It does not define you. Naming it gives us power. Naming it allows us to push back. What ableism really looks like is a culture that fails to see the full humanity of disabled people. But what advocacy, awareness, and community can look like is something far more powerful. It looks like a world where we are heard, where we are seen, and where our lives and needs are treated with dignity. That's the world we're walking toward, step by step. And every time we talk about ableism, we bring that world a little closer. That is all I have for you today. Next week, we are going to be talking about being the difficult patient, what advocacy versus aggression looks like. Thank you for joining me today on Living Beyond the Invisible, A Walk with Heather. If this episode resonated with you, remember, you're not alone on this journey. You can connect with me on Facebook and TikTok, where I share more encouragement, advocacy, and behind-the-scenes glimpses of life with invisible disabilities. And if you'd like to support the podcast and gain access to exclusive content, you can also join me on Patreon. All of those links are in the show notes. Until next time, take gentle care of yourself, and I'll see you next week.